Yes! Oh, okay. Well, not gonna load. Hey everyone, 40 the Broadway Saiyan here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel with another video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. In today's video, we will be going over the next upcoming lost chapters featuring the return of Golbez from Final Fantasy IV. Joining Golbez as Synergy will be Seven and Laguna. The topics we will be covering in this video are the level 70 awakenings for both Golbez and Seven's rework, Golbez and Seven's EX weapons realizations, should you pull on the featured banner, and the Chaos difficulty boss fighting against Flawless. Once again, big shout out to the Tonberry Troupe as I will be showcasing their beautiful infographics for Golbez and Seven. Friendly reminder that every skill, passive, buff, and debuff that I cover in this video are presented assuming you have every single equipment passive unlocked, as I want to showcase these characters at their maximum potential. Without further ado, let's go ahead and move forward to the overview for the Golbez Lost Chapters. Golbez, the powerful warlock from Final Fantasy IV, was introduced to Opera Omnia as a hybrid damage dealer, with both his attacks having melee physical and magic properties, as well as the dark element. At the time of his release, his damage output was one of the highest, especially when inflicting the Dark Imperial debuff, making enemies more vulnerable to the element. While his Lost Chapters does not give him a rework, he does get a level 70 awakening. His C65 ability, called Dark Enchant, grants all of his Brave attacks the Dark element and increases his max Brave by 20% for 4 turns. At C68, he unlocks a passive that permanently increases his own attack and max Brave by 20%. Again, while he didn't get a rework, Golbez was already a force to be reckoned with, and his real upgrades comes from his realized EX weapon, which we will talk about later in this video. Artifact passives you want to have on Golbez will be Attack plus 108 and Lunarian Descendant boost 2-star. Type 07 receives a much-needed rework with the release of this Lost Chapters. 7, when first introduced, specialized in locking on a single target with her Snake Bite debuff and inflicting increased damage on that debuff target. Onto her rework. Her skill 1, Snake Bite and Lash, gets an additional skill usage, increased Brave damage potency to 280%, removes the conditional HP attack, and improves the generic max Brave up buff she grants to herself to 50% and increases the duration to 8 turns. Her skill 2, Elemental Lash Extend, gets an increased Brave damage potency to 300%, can now Brave Overflow by 120%, increases the duration of the generic attack up buff to herself to 8 turns, and now while she is buffed, her Brave Attack Plus is unlocked, which has its Brave hits increased to 2, increased Brave damage potency to 160%, and triggers additional weakness damage by 1.5 times against a Snake Bite inflicted target, and increases the Snake Bite debuff stack by 1. These upgrades have definitely increased her offense against singular targets. The ideal artifact passes for 7 are Attack plus 108 and Eyes on Everything boost 2-star. The banner featured on this Lost Chapters features the return of all of Golbez's gear, the return of Laguna and Seven's 15 and 35 CP weapons, and the debut of Seven's EX weapon. Unfortunately, Laguna will be sidelined for a very long time, so it will not be feasible to build him despite his synergy on this event. Both Golbez and Seven's EX weapons receive their realizations with this Lost Chapters. Let's start with Golbez's EX realization. At 0 out of 3, his EX ability Twin Meteor gets a Brave damage potency increase to 450% and allows him a free ability usage next turn. It also changes his HP attack to HP attack plus. 1 out of 3 permanently increases his own attack by 40% and his own max Brave by 60%. 2 out of 3 grants Golbez a new unique buff when using Twin Meteor called Atonement for Hatred for 4 turns, which increases his Brave Overflow by 20% and also grants him a 50% weakness damage up. It also allows him to start the quest with 1 stack of Shadow Dragon for 6 turns, and allows him to immediately cast his EX ability, Twin Meteor. Finally, 3 out of 3 allows his EX ability Twin Meteor to trigger 3 times instead of twice, splits the HP damage against multiple targets, and increases its overall Brave damage potency to 650%. The A-type sphere unlocked from this EX weapon is called Weak Raging Attack, which raises that character's attack by 2% for up to 5 times when hitting a target's weakness. Let's move forward and talk about the new EX weapon and its realization for 7. 7's EX weapon allows her access to her EX ability Sadistic Spikes, which is a 3-hit, non-elemental melee single-target Brave plus single-target HP attack executed twice. It triggers a 1.5 times weakness damage against a snake bite inflicted enemy and deals 20% splash damage to other targets on the second attack. It also changes her HP attack to its plus variant. This ability has a 120% Brave overflow and a 420% Brave damage potency. Realizing this weapon grants the following: 0 out of 3 increases Sadistic Spike's Brave overflow to 150% and recovers 1 ability usage of her skill 1 Snakebite and Lash up to its initial value. It also changes her HP attack plus to its plus plus variant. 1 out of 3 permanently increases her own attack and max Brave by 40%. 2 out of 3 allows Sadistic Spikes to inflict 2 stacks of Snakebite for 6 turns, and at the start of the battle, 1 random target will have 1 stack of Snakebite inflicted on them for 6 turns, and 7 will have a 50% max Brave up for 8 turns. Finally, 3 out of 3 further improves Sadistic Spikes by increasing its Brave hits to 6, increasing its Brave damage potency to 720%, and increasing its Brave overflow to 180%. The A-type sphere unlocked from this EX weapon is called Weak Power, which raises that character's Brave damage dealt by 10% when hitting a target's weakness. Now on to the big question: should you pull and invest in Golbez and 7 for the Chaos era? Golbez again was already a powerhouse, and his ability to inflict even more damage now with his Dark Elemental abilities further solidifies his usefulness, especially with the recent change to the weakness or imperil mechanic. That being said, while he does bring a huge amount of damage to the table, his lack of Dark Enchant to the party makes him a very self-centered party member, as he offers very little outside of what he is good at, which is massive dark damage. If you have characters such as Emperor or Ultimecia built, Golbez might be a pass on your gems and tickets unless he's one of your favorites. Let's not forget, his EX ability has a slower recast rate, and at times, the Dark Imperil debuff may run out before you can even recast it. Moving on to 7. While she did get some really good upgrades, her biggest issues lies in her style of play. She is really only at her best when there is only one target. At multiple targets, her usability diminishes because she is forced to switch targets, which resets the stacks of her Snake Bite debuff. During the mid to late Chaos era, a majority of boss fights will have more than one target, which makes 7 very difficult to build around. Still, if you do decide to pull for her, she can be very powerful against single target boss fights. For 7, she is likely a pass unless you really like her. Our last topic of discussion will be the Chaos difficulty boss fight against Flawless. Flawless will be by itself in this version of the fight and will be absorbing the Holy Element and weak to both Ice and Dark elements with a chase value of 40. It is also resistant to magic-type Brave attacks. Its key ability is curing itself to full HP once you fully deplete its HP the first time around. Its HP value is around 2 million. Be careful of its abilities, as most of them hit hard, have a low turn rate, and can remove buffs from the party members that are not framed. When it heals itself, it will also gain an increase to its attack, defense, speed, and max Brave, and will unleash a very powerful AoE attack that could potentially wipe out your party. An ideal way to deal with that attack is to summon just right before you are about to deplete its HP for the first time. Just like any of the other Bahamut-type enemies, it also counters when you use a summon after the summon phase, so be very careful not to get broken. Both Golbez and 7 will shine very well, as Flawless will be a singular boss fight. I highly recommend bringing a strong support such as Charlotta, Rosa, or Porum, even if they are resistant for their Magic Brave attacks, to keep your party alive, since its host of AoE attacks hit hard and can wipe out your party. This concludes my video for the upcoming Golbez Lost chapters on Global Opera Omnia. Thank you again for watching. This is 40 the Broadway Saiyan signing out. Mahal, everyone.